Hi, it's Dave T here, and a few weeks ago, after a bit of a wait, the AGM batteries in my Adria twin camper van were replaced with a new 230 SEATBASE 4 lithium battery from Roamer. Now, I've already made a review video of the 230 SEATBASE. I'll put a link in the description for that video, as well as a discount code for any Roamer batteries if you'd like to order one, as well as support the channel. Now, this video is not going to be quite as planned. Originally, I was going to film the whole install as it took place, but when I reviewed the footage, it became clear that it would make more sense to cover each part of the installation in order of complexity. So I'm going to cover the key elements of the installation, starting with the simple and or essential steps, and then move through to other steps in order either increasing complexity or necessity in terms of if you have to actually make those changes. Now, full disclosure in advance, I'm not a qualified auto electrician. The guy that did the installation was. So this video is intended to be a kind of how we did it as opposed to how to do it. But it should serve as a pretty good overview of what is involved in upgrading to lithium. Also, I won't be covering allowing for inverters since, well, basically I didn't fit one. And anything other than the smallest of inverters should really have dedicated wiring installed direct from the battery. Now, the first question to ask when installing any upgrade to a camper van or motorhome, or anything really, is whether to do it yourself or pay a professional to do it. Now, I have made various upgrades myself in the past to our caravans, including changing to lithium. I've also done a lot of DIY and have a pretty good understanding of electrical principles. I also have a fairly comprehensive range of tools. However, despite all that, I decided to get a professional to do the installation for me, so I should probably explain my reasoning. So when I started to look at what was involved in swapping to lithium, it became clear that whilst not essential, it made sense to swap some of the other components. This meant changing some of the wiring, and the more I looked into it, the clearer it was about how interwoven the wiring was with the other components in the system and the camper van itself. I don't like working on any system unless I fully understand how it works, so that was a bit of a red flag for me. The next thing that became clear was that some of the existing wiring was, well, let's just say less than optimal. Now, this was possibly a feature of Adria's, but I suspect this will be similar in other makes of vans. I've seen this before in caravans and other vehicles where the manufacturer builds to the minimum specification, often using standard or modular components or wiring looms which are not really optimized for the specific use in each vehicle model. Now, for that reason, I wanted a professional to look over the entire system and fix anything that needed to be up to a higher standard. The other thing to consider is that all of the incidental tools and materials can both add up in cost, but more importantly start to take up a lot of time in delays. So with all that in mind, I asked Roamer for some recommendations for installers. They suggested several, and I went with Marine and Auto Electrics near Ipswich in Suffolk. Gavin at Marine and Auto has decades of experience installing 12-volt systems in both boats and caravans, and well, I'll let you hear what he says about how many installations he's done. So how many camper vans would you have said you've done so far, roughly?
Thousands.
Thousands?
Literally. I've been doing them back from the day when T4s and T25s were first on the road.
Yeah.
Do at least 100 a year, easily 100 a year. Yeah. Installs, conversions. I mean, so I've got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 here at the moment. Yeah. So yeah.
And most lithium now?
More so. Do quite a lot that already got batteries in, but yeah, I mean, I've had 4 delivered last week, but it just depends on what you're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of some of the upgrade, most of the installs, I'll tend to go lithium.
Now, as he said, he installs a lot of lithium batteries, both as new builds and upgrades. He's very knowledgeable when it comes to resolving issues with 12-volt systems, and I'd highly recommend him if you are in the east of England. So starting with the basics, removing the seat is fairly easy, but there are a couple of gotchas to watch out for. The front panel can be simply unclipped from the top and then pulled from the axle mounts. The rear panel requires a flat-bladed screwdriver to raise the tabs at the top corners, then put your fingers through the grille to actually pull the panel away. The side panels are easy to take off by removing a couple of screws in each and pulling them off. Now, before you unbolt the base, you can avoid the first gotcha by disconnecting the yellow cable connector, which is part of the airbag system. The second super sneaky gotcha is that once this cable is disconnected, you shouldn't switch on the engine or drive the vehicle. If you do, then it could trigger an engine management warning light, which you then have to pay fiat to reset. The seat swivel base is secured with 6 T20 Torx head screws. Just rotate the seat until you find an accessible angle, and you'll likely need a socket Torx as they will be quite tight. There's also a raised top stud which is removed from the side of a spanner, and the third gotcha are the 2 studs underneath that you can't see, and you'll need to take the nut off with a socket from underneath. The seat weighs, I'd guess, about 30 kilos or so can be carried fairly easily, but watch out for the studs underneath which could scratch the floor. The floor panels for the battery and the diesel access point also need to be lifted, and the cab battery negative cable disconnected. With the seat out of the way, the existing AGM batteries are removed, and here's the first example of the existing wiring. These are 4mm squared CSA wires connecting the 2 AGMs in parallel. We were replacing with a single SEATBASE battery, so this cable would be binned anyway, but even so, they were far longer than required and barely in spec for the 30 amp system fuse rating. Talking about the main 30 amp fuse for the battery, in the Twin originally this was mounted to floor just in front of the battery. Now this design has, I've been told, revised because the connectors to that plug holder are not actually rated for 30 amps, and there have been cases of where they have started to smoke and even melt. So one of the things that we also did was change this to a MIDI fuse which has better connectors. After removing the existing batteries, clamp plates and plastic baseboard, the cab floor is exposed, and there are 2 raised ridges that the SEATBASE battery can conveniently sit on, giving some bit of extra airflow beneath it. To the rear of the seat there's an L-shaped bracket, and the back end of the battery can rest against this. Then at the front end, a length of steel can be cut to length and just fits between the front of the seat base and the 2 diagonal brackets at either side of the seat frame. We added a strap around the seat frame at each side and tensioned it to stop any vertical movement of the battery. Now at this point, if you want to do a straight swap of the battery, then it is in theory purely a case of just connecting it and adjusting the settings of the solar, mains and B2B chargers to lithium profiles, if they have them. The active balancing feature of the Roamer 3rd and 4th generation batteries mean that lithium specific profiles are actually less essential, so that could essentially be the entirety of the installation. But stick around to the end of the video because there are other things you should definitely consider. So with the installation of the battery covered, let's talk about the solar controller. Now as you can see, our van is currently fitted with what I believe is a 90 watt panel, and this is certainly on the low side for off-grid use. But for the way in which we plan to use the van, it will probably be adequate, so we're not planning to add any more solar just yet. If the solar controller did not have a lithium profile, then it would only charge the battery to about 90%. So I would definitely have replaced it, since being parked off grid is when it's most important to make the most use of any sun and charge the batteries right up if possible. Now the existing solar controller we had was a Victron Duo, which can actually charge both the habitation and vehicle battery. I'll come back to that later. Now it does, I believe, have a lithium profile, so it didn't need to be swapped, but unfortunately it's not Bluetooth enabled, so this has to be configured using the buttons on the controller. And as you can see from this photo, the original location of the battery makes it difficult to see the screen at all, and certainly not go through menus with buttons for configuring it. So for that reason, we changed it to a Victron Smart controller, which I can then monitor and configure using an app on my phone. I've had a smart controller in the caravan for years, and they make monitoring solar generation so much easier, and would definitely recommend them. The solar controller output on the Twin actually goes into the electro block controller underneath the driver's seat. Now the van already had a DC to DC charger, often referred to as a B2B charger, and it was a showered 20 amp booster, and again did have a lithium profile. So in theory could have been left in place and simply swapped to its lithium setting. Now bear in mind, as I've already mentioned, the solar panel is limited, so charging the battery whilst we are driving is likely to be our main method of recharging the battery, at least for now. A few years ago, when upgrading our caravan for off-grid usage, I measured the consumption of all of the devices in the van, and I then made a spreadsheet to both modify the estimated usage of each item. For example, you could change how many hours of TV you'd watch each night, as well as specifying the possible generation scenarios, such as 2 days of good weather, then 3 days of bad, and so on. Now, I've recently been updating this to make it more campervan and motorhome relevant, so subscribe and click the bell icon to make sure you see the video of that. Using this, it became apparent that with poor weather and the likely daily mileage we were planning on, well, a 20 amp charge rate probably wasn't going to keep us topped up enough. And also, again, the size of the wiring for the existing booster was a bit borderline even for 20 amps. So the plan here was to install a Victron Orion XS DC to DC charger. This has a maximum charge current of 50 amps, but it can be configured to charge anything from 1 amp up to 50 amps. It's far more efficient than the previous DC to DC chargers, meaning that it runs much cooler, even without the large cooling fins of the previous models. It's also Bluetooth enabled, meaning that it can be configured and monitored using the phone app. It can also communicate with the solar controller so that they can synchronize their charging, making it more efficient as well as improving battery life. Now, as part of the Orion installation, Gavin upgraded the cable from the starter battery to the Orion charger significantly, as well as from the Orion to the battery. The existing relay was left in place to switch off the feed to the EBL unit when the engine was switched on. Now, the electro block or EBL unit in our Adria twin is also made by Shoud and is the central kind of fuse stroke control unit for the entire 12-volt habitation system. It's located under the driver's seat and also contains a 12-volt charger for charging the battery when on electric hookup. It's worth noting here that this mains powered 12-volt charger doesn't actually power the van's systems when on hookup. It merely keeps the battery topped up. The maximum output, according to the front panel, is 18 amps. So if you're using more than 18 amps at any point, the battery level is going to start to fall. Now, our model is the EBL 211, which does not have a lithium profile, though later models do, so could be simply switched over on those. There is also a company called Applejack Electronics in the UK that can actually both service and repair EBL units and also upgrade them to be lithium compatible. So that is an option. One thing to check is that some mains chargers have a desulfation feature, and now this can charge the battery at high voltage for a period of time to reduce or remove battery sulfation. This is definitely not recommended for lithium, so if using a charger that doesn't specifically have a lithium setting, it's a good idea to confirm that it also does not have a desulfation feature. Now, in my case, I decided to simply purchase a Victron Blue Smart controller, which again can be monitored and configured via the app. It's only 16 amps, but this is more than adequate, since if we are on electric hookup, then we're almost certainly going to be on site for at least 12 hours. 16 amp for 12 hours would be 192 amp hours, so almost certainly enough to bring the SEATBASE 230 back to full charge. I actually designed and 3D printed these brackets to go on the top and bottom bars of the SEATBASE frame, and I'll put those on Thingiverse, by the way, if you want them. I'll put a link in the description. The mains cable to the EBL was simply unplugged and removed, and the Victron charger then connected to the main supply. Now, at this point, I have to level another criticism of the Adria's existing wiring. This is the previous junction box that was used to connect the 240-volt feed cable from the van's consumer unit to the foot-long kettle lead that goes into the EBL. Apart from being an overly large box, the cable entry into the box was not secured with glands. Worse still, the conductor wires were actually visible outside of the box. It's also worth pointing out that there was about a metre of excess 240-volt cable rolled up underneath the seat. Now, this is a classic case of a manufacturer using a standard wiring loom that is longer than required, and instead of trimming it, the installers simply coil it up and shove it in. I purchased a smaller junction box along with some cable glands, and also one of these inline connectors which features a fuse holder to fuse the cable. This arrangement is now neater and safer than the original. So the last part of the installation before I wrap up is to provide a means of ensuring that the starter battery is kept topped up. This is particularly important when the van is in storage for weeks and potentially months at a time. Now, if you recall the section about my solar charge controller, you may remember that the old Victron Duro controller, as its name suggests, was actually charging two batteries. On the model that I had, you could actually configure what percentage of the available solar power went to the habitation battery, and with the remainder going to the starter battery. Now, with the Duro removed, the starter battery could potentially go flat when in storage, so I looked around for an alternative solution. Now, there are several different low-cost battery maintainers available, but they work on the assumption that the source and target battery voltages are the same when fully charged. Bearing in mind that the lithium has a higher resting voltage, they aren't really compatible. The Sterling battery maintainer is compatible with lithium and will basically start charging the starter battery when the source battery reaches 13.3 volts. Current is limited to 1 or 2 amps at a voltage of 0.2 volts less than the source battery. Now, we added a switch to actually disable the maintainer so that it can be disengaged when the vehicle is in use and when the battery maintenance would not be required. At some point, I want to add a couple of additional 12-volt sockets to the van, particularly at the rear of the vehicle in the garage for convenience, running things like lights and pumps, and also to power a Wi-Fi router at some point. Bearing in mind the other limitations I'd seen with the standard wiring, I'd rather not bounce additional sockets off of the existing ones. So instead, Gavin installed this small fuse box under the driver's seat. Any new circuits can then safely be run off of this. As I mentioned earlier, several of the existing leads were needlessly long and these were trimmed back and tidied up. In some cases, cables were swapped out for heavier gauge wires. So, in conclusion, I'm really pleased with my new Roamer SEATBASE battery and the installation as a whole. The battery itself is going to make a massive difference in terms of our ability to stay off-grid without any power anxiety. The upgrades to the solar, B2B and mains charger to smart devices make the whole operation of the system just so much more transparent as to what's happening. Could I have done this myself? Well, probably, and especially if I've not upgraded the B2B and left the wiring as it was. But having an expert look over the system, upgrade some of the wiring and generally tidy up the installation was, for me at least, well worth the money. The only component of my system that technically needed to be replaced to support lithium was the mains charger in the electroblock. I could in theory have left that mains charger as is because the Roamer's active balancing would have still ensured that the battery remained balanced when on hookup, especially with the B2B and the solar doing the heavy lifting to get the battery up to 100% charged. A special thank you to Gavin at Marine and Auto for putting up with me filming and asking dumb questions all day. He really is a friendly and knowledgeable guy and I'd highly recommend him. I'll put a link to his Facebook page in the description below. Also, just a reminder that if you'd like a discount on a Roamer battery and also help this channel, then there's a coupon code and affiliate link in the description. Most of all though, I hope you found this video helpful or interesting, and if you have, please do hit that like button, and if you'd like to see other videos that I make, then please do consider subscribing to my channel. But most of all, thanks for watching.